Welcome, welcome back. Today, I have an interesting conversation. We are going to talk about decentralizing trust in the age of AI. That is what I have kind of named this episode. And my audience, I think they know we do sessions, we do episodes across wide domains, wide variety of domains in the context of AI. And today, being a little more onto the decentralization part and trust, is going to be even more interesting. So, welcome on board, Murphy.
Hey, Raghu, thanks for having me on the podcast.
All right. So, before we get started, let me start with this, Murphy. I know uh, if AI agents become autonomous decision makers, who should we trust more? Centralized cloud systems or decentralized infrastructure? I know this is one thing which we are going to go into the conversation, but maybe a quick response if you can go, and then we will get into a little bit of the background. So,
Okay, I think you should go with the decentralized platform, because what happens is, in a centralized cloud or with any hyperscalers, you're trusting a company rather than the architecture. And with decentralized cloud, you're actually trusting the architecture. You're keeping your trust on architecture to ensure that you get the optimum results. So I think I'll go with decentralized cloud for sure.
okay. Okay, so let's get into the conversation, and then we'll get into a bit more details about that. So before we get started, I would like to obviously understand your journey, your personal backstory or a professional backstory about how you ended up being here at the intersection of decentralized infrastructure and storage and AI. All are going to be very, very important. I know now with decentralized infrastructure has been there for a while, but now with AI, it's getting even more important. And how did you end up getting into the uh, what do you call the intersection of all these storage, AI, and decentralized infrastructure?
Okay, so I'll start my story around 2 decades back.
Hmm.
So I graduated from the college. So I was basically in Mumbai, India, and that's when internet was just starting in India. It was around 1998 approximately. The internet was just picking up, and we got fascinated very well to this, and it was a very uh, actually a phenomenal change in the way how we're looking at the world and how we were communicating and transacting. And we thought that this is going to be something really life changing thing that's going to happen, and we slowly started looking into it. And after that, soon we started up an organization which was into setting up websites, managing infrastructure for the clients. And since we were very early in this stage, we were very lucky and fortunate to work with some of the best minds in the industry. So we got called by a lot of people giving seminars, working for them, doing infrastructure setup. So we think that we were very lucky in that aspect. And that's how I started in the journey, basically with the internet, with the infrastructure side. And we started setting up infrastructures, like we set up cloud servers, dedicated servers, mail services, DNS services, domain name, managing websites. That's how a journey, and it was very very fascinating, because that we were at that point of time, it was very new for everyone. Even
Right.
anything we talk about was very fascinating for general people to listen to. And we got very famous because of, in a very short time, we got interviewed by BBC. We were among the top 25 people with the greatest minds in India, and that's how the journey started. And I've been with the organization for the past 20 years in my journey, and we're still working with the clients, same set of clients. I was working with Fortune 500 companies. My role was basically to help them out to navigate this thing and ensure that the domain or that their infrastructure, the business remains critically secure. So that's my fascination with the internet, and my fascination with cloud or storage started. And after that, slowly, what happened was we saw the whole adoption curve. That's from starting of people having on-premises servers, moving onto the cloud, and then cloud being misused by the various partners or various stakeholders in this, and then looking at blockchain. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where we started. That's like a second law. We started feeling that this is something really very interesting, and it's going
Right.
to change a lot of things in the future to happen. And since we were from the background of this cloud, we background from the cloud storage industry, and we were aware of the abuses that was happening around data, which we were always talking to a lot of set of customers, understanding what their requirements are, what their nightmares are. We slowly started looking into a way where we could mix this blockchain and storage of the infrastructure, and that's how StorX was born. I was called by the founder, Mr. Handy Barrow, who was the founder of the organization. Very charismatic. He was talking to a lot of people. He has some very crazy ideas, and then we started working on this, like how we could formalize his vision to giving security and enabling all the stakeholders, actually democratizing the storage and ensuring that it remains really secure, and the power remains always with the users and not with some big company or big corporations. And that's my journey, that I turned from the infrastructure to the blockchain or the decentralized DePIN based industry.
Right, right. So that's a great journey. I believe I like the way you have put it. So let's get into the main meat of the conversation for today. I think I would like to. I know we are seeing the last 2-3 years. I think I should say now it's almost like 4 years. I think ever since the inception of generative AI with ChatGPT and other things, the AI wave has suddenly came back in form in a different way, and then things are now it has become easier even for the common man to understand the benefits of how to use AI. And with that, the exponential curve of AI, we see AI is also moving from an experimentation phase to these mission critical systems. So, in this context, the role of infrastructure or the role of data infrastructure changes quite dramatically, right? I think what do you think about that?
I think it's I think we are in a phenomenal age, and we were I think I personally was very lucky to see all the kind of new technologies that was evolving. So I saw the advent of internet, then I saw the advent of blockchain, and now it's all AI. So that definitely it's one of the best age for people to be living in and understanding how technology can be used. And that's something like AI has democratized. Like it's something that was supposed to be the domain of programmers, the domain of technical people. It has moved away from that to common man, where we see a lot of stories around common man using it to the best of the optimum use. But I think something that has happened with this great scale of adoption is what I see is the way in which infrastructure is in demand. So you see there is a supply chain constraint where you see the major data centers are all blocked, or like they have the capacity always being taken up all by these companies who are into AI. You heard the latest Amazon's agreement. You can see about the hardware, about the chip. All of them are like sold out for 2027, end of 2027. So that's phenomenal, and I think in the way that it's going to be used, and this is some technology just like internet where even the common man can benefit out of it. A great way, the development that has come because of this LLM models, because of so many tools which are easily accessible to all these people. I think human potential has gone very up. So I think a normal man who is using it for his own benefit can at least 2 to 3x his own capabilities of doing anything, and that's going to phenomenally grow over the period of time. So that's the thing. I think this is one of the most wonderful time to be living in. But with this, it brings in a lot of stress to the infrastructure that is going to power all this technology. So you see computing, you see GPU, even storage. I think it's one of the very crucial thing. You almost find like Western Digital, it's sold out till the end of the year. The complete capacity of production is sold out for the year. So that's something that is really happening at a very phenomenal rate, and this is going to increase over the period of time. That's what I think. And with the introduction of great CPUs, computing powers, quantum computing, and all this is going to still go a lot from where we are standing right now.
Right. So I know with that, now we are also getting into this agentic wave. So there are a lot of agents being built across these enterprises, whether it in each of these layers, whether it is in the infrastructure space, or whether it is in the platform space, or whether it is in the application space, or whether it is in the data layer space. So we see that there is uh, with AI agents now generating and consuming this huge amount of data. Do you see now? I think I want to get into this aspect of, do you see the centralized cloud as a bottleneck, or is it still a necessity? Because now we are going to talk about decentralized infrastructure, but I think uh, I first want to get back into the centralized cloud aspect. Do you think that is going to be a bottleneck, or is it still going to be a necessity?
No, it is going to be both. See, what happens is centralized cloud have been formed more than 20 years, 25 years. They have been evolved, and they have come up with a complete ecosystem.
Mhm.
So when you see other thing is, I think they have done some phenomenal, the wonderful job. They've done a lot of growth because of them. I think it was only possible because of these hyperscalers, but there is some disadvantages that they have inherently because of the architecture. That's because they're storing everything in a single location, a single file. Whereas the decentralized cloud is going to be phenomenally different compared to what it's happening. It's basically how we store, the architecture is designed in such a way that you do resiliency and redundancy of the data. So what I feel is the centralized cloud and the decentralized cloud both are going to have their own unique use cases. This only over the period of time we will be able to adjust and use both the technology in the very best possible way. That's what my personal feeling has always been. So we will have unique use cases, and in a very structured way in how centralized computing or centralized storage can be used. In the same way, decentralized cloud storage is also going to be having very specific use case and very specific way in which it could be had. So you will have both of them going hand in hand. Of course, neither say centralized cloud will still be a bigger part of it.
Mhm.
Centralized, decentralized would be a smaller part of it, but it would gain shares subsequently, and that's about to grow in a very excellent way.
Okay, so now let's get into this aspect of decentralized, or the DePIN movement, or the decentralized physical infrastructure networks. I know the stocks is part of this, right? So, but how do you explain this to an enterprise leader? This concept to an enterprise leader, because this is now gaining a lot of momentum. I know 10 years back with the blockchain wave and the blockchain momentum, it picked up quite a bit, and then it kind of died down a bit. And then now with the mm, uh, all this AI and generative AI wave, and a lot of compute and a lot of infrastructure, a lot of data getting into that. Now again, there is this uh, there is this push for this. So how do you explain this concept to the enterprise leader? I know stocks is part of this decentralized or the DePIN movement.
So this is a very a very good question, and I keep getting asked a lot of time. So DePIN is a revolutionary way in which you're shifting the power from centralized forces or certain companies, big companies, powerful entities holding together an enterprise, compared to a distributed mode where there are multiple stakeholders who come in together with a common cause and help for the growth of the community and the whole ecosystem. So with DePIN, it was like there were there were multiple cases where DePIN has helped business in a lot of way. There was cases like Helium, which is being able to give networks to places which are like far and wide remote places. So it has a very unique use cases right now. So in terms of storage, also it is the same way. So what we're trying to bring in is we're trying to bring in democratization of storage layers. So basically, rather than keeping all your data as a single in a single layer as with a single entity or some hyperscalers which control your data in completely their own way, you are democratizing the data which is distributed across all these places and completely secured by architecture. So this is something that you're giving the power of the data security and privacy to the user rather than corporations, hyperscalers controlling the entire data, and the data always resides on the single location. So I think decentralized or a deepened infrastructure, deepened revolution is all about democratization, democratizing the whole way in which the any concept is built, a community giving service to the larger masses.
Beautiful. So this is where I think the focus is more on how you can democratize the data. It doesn't matter where it's not controlled by one single or one large entity like a centralized cloud storage. But I think now with this concept, I think you have the access to control it in this decentralized physical infrastructure, and that is where I think players like StorX will come into play.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah.
one more thing I'll just add to it, Raghu. The
Mhm.
other thing is with DePIN, what you're doing is you actually incentivizing the community members who come together and ensure that you have this entire infrastructure built up and remain up and running. So in our case, when we taking storage from our community members, we incentivize them for keeping the storage online 24/7 and meeting the quality parameters, which is always very strict way of auditing. In the same way, I'll give you one more example. That is one of the ecosystem called Helium. They were able to offer network far and wide, which was not possible by the traditional cloud providers, traditional mobile service providers. So this is in way you are incentivizing people to give in the service something that is extra available and helping them to grow as well. So that's the basic model of it. When you bring in incentive models, it helps them to keep add the service and ensure the growth, so everybody grows together. It's not only the organization. So when you talk about hyperscalers, it's only the hyperscalers who are growing. But the deepened revolution, you are democratizing the way in which everybody earns together and everybody becomes a part of the larger network. And that's like the growth of the complete ecosystem.
Okay. So this is where you kind of whoever joins into this community or to this kind of a network, you contribute to the network and you kind of also leverage and you can also use it. If you're not using a particular storage, you kind of contribute to the network and then you this is how you can balance it out. I think companies like
Yes, so
StockX and
they get basically, yeah. So they get paid for giving the storage to us, and
Mhm.
they're incentivized to ensure that they keep the they keep the storage node up and running 24/7. And if they don't follow the quality parameters, they're penalized for that. So
Okay.
it's ensuring that everybody comes to, and because there's so many small. It's just like so many entities coming together and ensuring the larger network remains stable, and it gives the power to the end user.
Okay. So now, from your perspective, what are those biggest risks enterprises are facing today when storing these AI generated and AI sensitive data? I want to now get into a bit more into the challenges or the risks enterprises are getting in, right? I think uh, when you're storing this AI generated data or AI sensitive data, because this is where the data breaches can happen, and now we need to now if it is not maintained by a centralized storage and now it is being done through a decentralized physical infrastructure, this will these kind of risks or challenges can also compound, right? Like how do you what do you think will happen or what?
I'll give you the background of the hyperscalers and the way how they're storing, and then I'll
Mhm.
move on to the storage how they're different. So
Okay.
hyperscalers talking to the any traditional or legacy cloud providers, majority of them, if not all, is following the same pattern how they used to store the data before 20 years or 30 years. That's like your single piece of data is stored on a single location as a single file, unencrypted, accessible to everyone. That means the service provider can have a look at it. Any third party, any tool which is running scraping, governments, everybody. So that's a data is accessible to everyone if they're able to get in the access to that location. If a hacker is able to hack into a cloud service, he can use the same technology to hack the complete infrastructure of all the hyperscalers because they all follow the same stringent standard. They all have the same infrastructure. They have the same security guidelines. That means it's a very big risk because what happens is your data will not be, you will not be a big service provider, you will not be a big company, but still your data faces the same risk. So what is happening is because of the architecture you're prone to certain level of risk. The
Mhm.
second one is because so much, if you look at the advancement of cloud, there are only major four service providers, three to four service providers around the world, which control almost 80+% of the data which is being generated all over the world. So that
Mhm.
means these four hyperscalers are controlling majority of your life, whether you like it or not. Your
Mhm.
data resides with them. So what happens when you have so much of data residing with few individual data entities, private entities around the world? Now I'll explain this. Last year, one of the hyperscalers went down in the month of October,
Right.
and that was like a real big problem to all of them.
Mm-hmm.
People face downtime, which was like services going down, banks going down, airports being affected. Normal life, day-to-day life was affected because of that downtime. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just one region of the one hyperscaler. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
even talking about the entire cloud going down.
Right.
So that means when you're storing so much of data in with certain entities, it becomes prone to a lot of risk. And then the other risk like virus infection, there are ransomware, which has become a big nightmare for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Majority of the CTOs, CIOs, CISOs that I talk to are very really worried about the way they can prevent their organization from being infected by this ransomware, and that's happening in a very greater scale. And because of this AI, it's still gone a little further. So
Mm-hmm.
the sophistication at which this is happening, it's very big. And when you have a centralized infrastructure, it becomes prone to a lot of other ways which you can think about always. And then definitely there is a cost which keeps on spiraling, because what happens is you're storing your data with the service provider, which is like if you are controlling so much of data, it's like a seller's market. You know what happens
Right.
when the economics changes. So what we're trying to do is we are trying to create a model which is totally different. So we give them an architecture which is actually very secure by the way in which the data is stored. We are of course an open source project. We are not a closed source project, so anybody can go to GitHub and check our code. Everything is available online. So that means we are not playing around here with the data, and we are the way in which the data is stored. It's totally different compared to what the centralized service providers have been planning. So just to give you a background, whenever somebody is storing the data with us at StorX, at the user's desktop level itself or the laptop itself, we log the data with your own private key. Then the data is broken up into multiple fragments, and then we replicate these fragments, and then we store it across the network of nodes that we have worldwide. So that means your data is never stored as a single file in a single location. It is actually broken down into small fragments, and if by any chance somebody is able to hack into any of the storage nodes, they will just be getting encrypted data, which doesn't make any sense for them. So if you're able to get an access, and suppose there is a node which is not available, that node which contains the fragment of data, the system will know where's a different node which is having the same fragments of data. So it can always go to that node, collect the data, and bring it back. So what happens is, because of the unique architecture which is there, you're
Mm-hmm.
able to offer a very high level of security, resiliency, and reliability to the data set. So this is something I think with the growth of AI and
Mm-hmm.
business being relying on AI in so many ways, there are people who are training that sensitive data on proprietary data on LLM models and all. So this becomes the storage of the data becomes really very important, and the
Right.
way in which the data is stored is really very important. The way in which it's stored and way in which is accessed. So if you're given a way, if you're given like the security which decentralized cloud offers, it gives you a wide way in which you have the advantage compared to the centralized service providers.
Right. I definitely echo your thoughts and sentiments on about how the storage of data and the retrieval of data is becoming even more important, because the amount of data that is being stored now, uh, because of AI, the data generation is also become much more bigger and much more faster. But again, retrieval of that and using it in the right sense in the right time, it makes even more important. But I have one question here now. There is still a lot of hesitation with the enterprises, right? When you talk about decentralization, do you think it's a technology issue, a trust issue, or is it a ecosystem maturity issue? Why is that still there? Because we know, we of course we all know that we are so much bottled down or tied down with these 4 or 5 big infrastructure players, centralized cloud infrastructure players. But still, and we know about the problems there. Of course, they might have added a lot of decryption, encryption, and decryption, and those things. They might have added all that, but the thing is, there is still this getting tied up with that particular vendor or a particular thing, and when you go down, uh, we know about these inherent problems, but the thing is, why do you think enterprises still have this uh, problem or issue, saying that, hey, do you think it's, again, I'm repeating my question, but the thing is, like, is it a technology issue or a trust issue or ecosystem issue, maturity issue? What's your thought? What are your thoughts?
I think it's a combination of all three. So we have a technology problem, we have a trust problem, and we have an ecosystem problem. So I'll come to each of this. So technology wise, see what happens is this whole ecosystem, the technology of decentralized cloud storage is only 4 years old. Where
Mm-hmm.
you compare to the hyperscalers, which is like 20, 25 years old. So of course they have that leverage of so much of time, so much of benefit. The second one is the centralized cloud or the hyperscalers come with a whole ecosystem around it. So it's not just the storage, it's not just compute. They have built in a whole lot of ecosystem around this, which gives them a leverage. Again, gives them a leverage. And the second thought is this is still like a maturing technology. Now, what happened is before 4 years, there were a lot of projects which was involved in a lot of bad ways, which was decentralized technology was associated with a lot of wrong people. There were a lot of wrong things around. So that myth is still that all of the decentralized technology
Mm-hmm.
is still like all the people cannot trust it. So that's what I feel is a big problem that we have. So we have those three problems which we feel is actually shifting very rapidly. So we find the adoption happening, but in very niche areas. So I'll talk about my use case. So I talk about StorX use cases.
Mm-hmm.
We see the adoption happening. 80% of our clients are using us for backup.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than using us from, so we do can work as a primary storage, but 80% of our customers who signed up are using us as backup. Now, so we were doing a little deep dive, like why it makes sense for people to use this for backup,
Right.
not for primary storage. So there are specific leverages that you have. So when you're storing your backup, when you're
Mm-hmm.
storing your backup in a traditional cloud, you're storing again the same way as it's stored in the primary server, a
Mm-hmm.
single file in a single location. Multiple location, if you go in, that becomes very expensive, and people don't want to spend so much on backups. But the fact remains that it's still a very important component of your ecosystem. So what we do is, when you're storing your backup with us, we're giving you a kind of leverage by creating a redundant data supply. So because the architecture in such unique way that the data is being stored multiple places, multiple geographies, storing it in fragmented way, being encrypted at the source, it gives a lot of leverage. So we found that there is a lot of acceptance around this use case.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been focusing, like from day one, what we did was we thought the technology has to be so easy to use. People should not be able to differentiate between a centralized cloud and a decentralized cloud. So typically, it was something like a CDMA phone, which was used earlier. You find those GSM phone used to be very sleek, very beautiful. The CDMA phone would be like a very bulky one. People would not accept it. Of course, with the advance of the technology, those have all gone. So we have still like the same phones coming for all. So we feel that when we did a deep dive, that the backup cases were very unique. So we have, and what we did was our storage is S3 compatible, which means you can just store data on our platform as any S3 services. So if you're storing your data in S3 service, the same way you can store it as well. For the backup, what we have done is we have created unique, like we have 60 plus backup softwares which are integrated to our ecosystem. So
Mm-hmm.
you're using any of the ecosystem, any of the backup software, you can just plug in the backup software and use this as a cloud. So all these things have made us really very unique, and kind of offered us leverage in this use case. So we are being more used in that case, and that we feel still, if we that's still advantage that we have, and the customer also benefits out of it. So that I feel that there will be unique and niche areas which will come out over the period of time as well. I'll give you one more unique, interesting case which we are working with us.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this company that we are working with us, which is into AI in medical field specifically. So what they're doing is they are scanning all the MRIs, healthcare records, and all those things, and then they're getting their output. So what happens
Mm-hmm.
is, because health record is such a critical information, they are subjected to so much of compliances. Plus,
Right.
they don't want the data to move away from the country and all this stuff. So what we did was we created they came up with this unique problem, that they had this problem and they wanted security as well as the reliability and redundancy. So we created a private network from them, and then we've created that in their own country rather than data living outside. So we have, like, instead of this multiple nodes, they have like 4 or 5 locations. The data is stored across them, and the data is accessed by their own LLM. The data never goes out, and it's a proprietary data, so nobody can see it except the doctors. So that has created a unique. So we're creating such unique use cases, niche cases where we can talk to people and give them use cases, and that's going to be a forte, I think, in the coming days. Since it would be it would I cannot say that I'm better than the hyperscalers in all the phrase, but definitely there are areas where we are very good. So we would leverage that and work on that and give services around those areas.
So basically, here, what you're trying to say, this second example, I really liked it. Of course, the first one is more like on the backup scenarios, backup storage locations. That is where a very good use case to get into this field and then um, get into this aspects. But the second one, which is where you're trying to recreate a network or a decentralized network within the geography or within the region, and then kind of spread across all those nodes within that region, and so that in that way you have it uh, within the boundaries of the geography. So beautiful. I think in that way you kind of you still have the security that is needed, and then you still have you can also maintain these data privacy laws and other things. So when
Yeah, I think your users can relate to this area. That's why I gave you around AI.
right,
We do have a lot of unique cases, but this is something that your users, because they come from the background from AI. That's why I gave that example. So that will probably they can
right,
relate
right.
to it in a much better way.
So now when we talk about slowly we are getting into this aspects of data privacy, right? Data privacy, and because we are talking about these geographies, these within the region, data sovereignty issues or compliance, how should CIOs think about in this kind of an AI first world when we talk about these issues, and now uh, taking that aspect into decentralization? Any thoughts that you would like to share?
I think the data sovereignty is more. It's very critical factor now. It's not just a regulatory requirement, but
Hmm.
also a strategic asset that the CIO should look at, because there are so many of data laws which are enacted around the safety and security of the data, and these are all regional, of
Hmm.
course. But I tend to contradict with them in one way, because what happens is, when you're talking about to these regulators, and you're talking about to all this law enforcement agency, I mean, they want the data to be inside the country. But what happens is now, that remains good when everything is good around. But look at a geopolitical scenario when something goes wrong. So
Hmm.
if you talk about the Iran war, right, recently, there were 2 specific data centers which were targeted, and these
Hmm.
were specifically targeted. So that means the data centers are now become core assets of the nation. It's like a desalination plant or a nuclear power plant.
Hmm.
It has come to the same importance as any critical infrastructure for that country. So if you are doing with, suppose if you're doing with the same data center or multiple data centers with the same ISP, it will become like, if they are prone to all this risk, geopolitical risk, as I can say, which
Hmm.
they should take a call at this aspects also. Because what happens is, like if you talk about European Economic Zone, or you talk about US, the data, there's so many of law, GDPR, Cloud Act, and all so many laws which are enacted, which ensures the data should remain always in the country, and the penalties for this kind of breaches are very high. So
Hmm.
if you kill a person, you have less liability compared to the data leaks that has been happening. So that means governments are taking this as very, very critical steps. They're very serious about this data. But what happens is, they should also look beyond this, where in case if there is a geopolitical scenario which happens, what will they do? In case if there is a war which cuts the physical infrastructure or the underlying sea cable which is connected to the country, what
Hmm.
do they do? So those are the aspects which we have not thought any time, we were just thinking about the time when everything is good. So because of this recent geopolitical scenario which happened, and there was threatening around cutting of cables, they were threatening. There was actually two data centers which were targeted, and that almost crippled a lot of banks and some critical infrastructure which was there for the country, those specific countries. So I
Mhm.
think this is also something really very critical that I don't know how the regulators will balance both of things, but I think this should also be considered, like what happens if there is geopolitical risk, because that also becomes very evident for the
Right.
business, right? So that's something that they will have to figure it out and see how they can finally balance both of them. The interest of the country plus at the same time the interest of the user when there is some critical scenario happening like this.
True, true. That's a great point that you brought up about geopolitical situations and how things have to be handled and how you should think in a much more bigger way about how you could build these decentralized data centers or decentralized infrastructures. Maybe I think in future we will have these things built up in just like how Elon Musk is talking about data centers in the space or outside. I think
Yes, yes.
that will.
In fact, even the regulators are studying it very deeply. It was only because this has happened in such in a haste that they
Mhm.
had come up. But definitely, there is a holistic way in looking on how you can offer the services and how reliable they can be. So you talk about the data center in the space. There could be data centers inside the oceans, those kind of things. So we will come up with such unique ways in which how you can ensure, because I think we are in the data economy. Data is something that is very critical, and with this AI happening, the amount of data that's going to be processed and created is going to be very huge. So
Right.
just like we were before 3 years, we were studying the figures of the data that is being created. So in the last 4 years, we've created more data than what we've created in the past 20 years. And this was before the
True.
advent of AI, where
Right.
AI is
Right.
not being used. Now, I just to give my examples in my marketing team, they create so much of data every day that we were creating in 1 week or two
Yeah.
weeks. They have the
Yeah.
data created every week, and then there is someone who has to go through the data, pick up the major points, put it in the ELM, again come out with data. So much of data being bought, generated, storage and laws around it. It has to be a very efficient and a robust ecosystem that has to be created.
Right. Right. Let's now. I want to. I know we are almost getting to the more than two-thirds of our conversation. I want to get into some of the core aspects of Stock's approach and the differentiation factor. This is where I want to get in. I know Stock's uses fragmentation plus encryption plus global node distribution, some of these things, right? I think, can you break this uh, down into this particular architecture in simple terms so that the uh, enterprise leaders, the centralized enterprise leaders, can understand a bit more about how Stocks uses this methodology?
So I'll give you a very simple methodology, like
Sure.
how we operate. So basically,
Right.
we are open source project.
Right.
We are decentralized cloud storage method. So what we do is how we are different compared to the hyperscalers or the legacy storage providers is in the way in which how we process your data and store your data. So traditionally, for the past 20 years, what you have been doing is you have been taking your data and putting it in one single place, a single file.
Hmm.
Even if your data is encrypted, the keys will always lie with the service provider. That means your service providers can see your data at any point of time. Whereas what at StorX we do is whenever you're using a platform to store the data, the first thing that we do is from whenever you upload your file, and the browser itself will lock with the unique private key that will remain unique to your local system. The
Hmm.
key doesn't get transferred. That only the encrypted file gets transferred to StorX. Once the encrypted file is stored in the StorX, it gets broken down into small fragments. So it would be like very small fragments, and then we replicate those fragments, and then we distribute it to the network of nodes which are spread worldwide. So because we are not storing the data as a single file in a single location, it's always encrypted. Nobody can see your data. So that means your data remains highly private. Even we as a platform service provider cannot see what is there in the data. A node operator who's storing your data cannot see the data because it's multiple fragments of data which is lying at multiple storage providers. If I need to see your data, I need to know hundreds of nodes which are other than this, which has the fragment, and then I need to know the encryption key. So only your platform, only your laptop or your desktop can call that file. So that's something that is unique. And because of the unique, as I told you, because of this unique architecture, we are able to offer you a very high level of resiliency, security, and privacy that is built into the system that is not being offered by the centralized service providers. So this is how we are unique and we are different from the normal legacy-based service providers.
Beautiful. So let me now ask this question, right? You got a lot of integrations with Google Workspace and Jira backups and other things, right? I think, how do you see decentralized storage fitting into this existing enterprise workflows now that there are a lot of integrations happening with the hyperscalers or other providers?
Yeah, so as I told you, we have integrations. Majority of integrations are on our backup tools. So we have 60 plus backup tools where we integrated a platform. That means you can just plug into any of the regular tools that you're taking data backup with and replace us as a source, the endpoint or the storage point. So the data, instead of going to a centralized service provider, can automatically flow into our network. Then we have special integrations for backup, like we have special backup integrations with Kubernetes. We have special backup integrations with Google. So that means in Google, what we're trying to do is we're creating a Google Workspace backup tool where you can backup your entire Google. You can backup your Gmail, specifically Gmail, your Google Photos, and your Drive. So all these three components would be specifically stored as a separate place in the decentralized cloud. So you will have your Google mails and you will also have your mails stored at StorX, and you can individually go and check them. So why this is important, I'll give you two use cases where how we thought about it. So since AI, people are going to use AI in such a phenomenal way. They're going to connect their Gmail, they're going to connect their Drive, they're going to connect their photos and all. And if any settings or anything goes wrong, AI can just go and delete your data, right? So we're trying to create an immutable place where you can safely store your Google Mails, safely store your Google Drive, and it remains immutable for a specific period of time. So you can just lock it. For the paid users, we have created an immutable drive. So that means you can just lock it for 180 days. For 180 days, you cannot delete it. Even you cannot delete it. It remains active there. And then it goes slowly. So those we are creating very unique use cases around integrations. In the same way, we have backup for Jira, we have backup for a lot of tools. There's total 70, 60 tools which are there, which we have already mentioned on our website.
Right. So now I come to this interesting question. I know you have talked about the differentiation earlier, but I put this as our XTraw AI question, the $1 million or the $1 billion question. I'm pretty sure there are other DePIN networks as well, the DePIN decentralized physical infrastructures as well. How do you differentiate with them, or what is your uniqueness, or what is that the wow factor with StorX?
Okay, so there are 2-3 wow factors which I can say specifically compared us to the other hyperscalers, which are let's me compare with the hyperscalers first, and then I go to the decentralized cloud.
Sure.
So as of DePIN space, we are one of the top 50 projects which are there currently ranked. So out of I think we are one of the top 35 projects which are there, constantly being there for so much time. That means we are pretty very serious compared to any other service providers which are there. So about the centralized and decentralized is the unique, as I told you, the unique way in which we are storing the data. Us compared to any other decentralized project is the way in which we are storing the data. We're storing all our data in tier 4, tier 3 data centers. That means compared to the other decentralized project, where you can just plug in your hard disk, your local machine as a storage provider. For us, if you want to be a storage provider, your storage has to be in the data center. So that once I get into the data center, that means I am guaranteed a certain level of quality, certain level of infrastructure requirement, and certain level of bandwidth. Unless you have a storage, this is built on the internet data, we don't accept. So that's kind of a unique factor, and that was a unique factor from day one. So when the other decentralized projects were telling them they can have their laptops, They can put in their desktop, they can put in the storage just into their home Wi-Fi and be a storage provider. We were very clear that our storage provider should only be the ES. So because we thought that our focus is always towards the enterprises, we thought that the input should always be great. Then only we can offer a great product. So that is what makes us unique, or that's why we are different compared to the other projects that are there currently in the market.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think I know we are getting close to the end of our conversation. Before I let you go, I have a couple more questions. I know as AI agents are becoming more and more autonomous, do you envision them directly interacting with decentralized storage networks in future, or is it already happening? Because this is where things get a bit more tricky, or things can get even more scarier too, right? I think agents directly interacting with decentralized storage networks. Any thoughts on that, or
It's already in the move. It will happen this year itself. I'm pretty sure it should happen this by before the end of this year. We will have agents autonomously talking to the storage, and there'll be agents who will be autonomously doing the entire storage retrieval in a more secure way. So we were doing it. We're doing it. We're thinking about only agents doing, but I'm envisioning that the agents would be taking care of the security privacy aspect as well. So that would happen before the end of this year, I think.
okay? So you mean that the centralized storage can become the default memory of AI agents in the near future, or is it at least some part of not centralized storage, or decentralized storage? Do you think decentralized storage can become kind of the default memory for these AI agents? Because now this can be the default memory layer.
Yes, I think this is going to affect, but it would take a little time because there will be some nuances which will still be there, which we feel that needs little clarification, but it will definitely happen.
Okay. All right. So, if you have any advice to the enterprise leaders in one sentence, what should they think about today about data storage in this age of AI?
I think they should look. They should take a holistic view in way they are handling the data. I think it needs. There's still the traditional mindset of how the data is being stored. They should definitely look at, because there's so many innovations that have happened over the past 20 years, 25 years, but the way in which they're storing the data or backing up the data still remains that 25 before 25 years, the traditional way. So they should look at a holistic way and how they're handling and accessing the data.
Beautiful. So, is there yeah, I think one, I generally try to ask my guests about any bold predictions in the space that I'm interviewing or we are talking about. So, any bold prediction that you have, like, would decentralized storage become mainstream, or do you think it'll still remain niche in the years to come?
I think it would gradually be increasing, but it will have a substantial share in the niche
Okay.
market itself. But now we just compared, like as I told you, we are like the distant cousin, but it still be in the mainstream, but in a small way. It would still have a little factor, but it would definitely catch up the way it is happening with other things.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, thanks talking with you. I think I learned a lot in this decentralized physical infrastructure, the deep in storage space, and how things are changing and evolving at such a fast pace. Any resources or next steps for the audience to explore about StorX or deep in further? Any shout out that you would like to give?
Sure. So they can visit our website, which is at storx.io. We are very active on social media. Twitter page is StorX Network. So you can come and visit our website. We welcome inquiries from developers, enterprise, CIOs, CEOs who are looking to do some kind of POCs, who are interested in partnering with us. We have very generous grants which are given to developers to work out with some decentralized projects. So we're always open to ideas, and we love working with enterprising people. So they're all welcome to come and access storx.io and also partner with us.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Murphy, for joining us today on XTraw AI and for sharing your insights on decentralized infrastructure, data security, and the future of storage in an AI-driven world. I particularly enjoyed our discussion around the convergence of AI, security, digital autonomy, and how decentralized networks may play an increasingly important role as enterprises continue to scale their AI initiatives. Your perspectives on data ownership, resilience, censorship resistance, and the evolving role of DePIN infrastructure provided some valuable food for thought for our audience. To everyone listening, I hope today's conversation gave you a fresh perspective on how the underlying infrastructure choices we make today could shape the future of AI tomorrow. As always, thank you for tuning in to XTraw AI, where we focus on extracting the raw AI conversations with industry leaders, innovators, entrepreneurs, researchers, and practitioners from around the world. Stay tuned as we continue with season 19, bringing you more thought-provoking discussions, emerging trends, breakthrough technologies, and real-world AI stories that are transforming enterprises and society. Until next time, this is your host, Raghu Banda. Happy predicting the future with AI technologies, and stay XTraw.